Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video and welcome to the final episode of the BD Footy Wrap Up for 2023. It's been a long ride this year. Missed a few weeks and months of this, but we finally got to the end of it. We finally got to the end of the footy season. And we got so much to look forward to over the next few months, over the summer, over the spring months and the summer as well. And what a way to end it. I'm going to unwrap all of what happened over the weekend, obviously. Of course, reviewing the AFL Grand Final between Brisbane and Collingwood in Brisbane on Saturday afternoon, and then for a first on this last episode this year, I'll be talking about the NRL. I'll be talking about the NRL Grand Final, which happened as I record this. This will go out most likely on a Tuesday. Most likely on a Tuesday. I'm recording this is on a Monday, just after the grand final. But I've only just recovered from the high that was the NRL grand final. But I'll unpack it all as well. So let's get right into it. So I went into, of course, the AFL grand final. Not quite knowing what to expect. Obviously, Collingwood over the last few finals have won by single-figure margins, but they've done throughout most of the time that Craig McRae's been there. And of course, Brisbane, who have been storming home throughout this final series, except for that one poor quarter against Carlton the week before in the prelim. So we didn't know where this was going to go. And the start of it was usual, helter skelter, each team just sucks each other out, really, which is usual in an AFL grand final. And then Collingwood, of course, with the man of the moment, Nick Dacos, got the first goal on the board, and then followed up with, I think it was a second, I believe. Followed up by a second, and then of course Brisbane answered back. For I think it was Danaher, I believe. And then of course the second or third goal was an absolute beauty from Zach Bailey, almost a carbon copy of Geordie De Goey's goal in 2018, which is almost a carbon copy of it, except De Goey's was more of a tight angle than Zach Bailey's was, but he still curled it through absolutely beautifully, and probably my pick for goal of the day. Really nothing really better in that case, but afterwards, after Brisbane really hit the front, the Collingwood settled again and kicked a couple of goals to put the margin to 10 at quarter time. Then it was then the second quarter changed into what was a free flowing game. Of course, to take it back a little bit, at the end of the first quarter, Nathan Murphy got knocked out accidentally by Lincoln McCarthy, and then at quarter time he was subbed out, unfortunately, of the game due to concussion. And how ironically, they kicked 2 goals. Either side of that, that announcement, they kicked 2 goals Brisbane kicked 2 goals in the first 2.5 minutes. To really, and put them in front as well. And it was just back and forth. It was just high score. It was just a high scoring free flowing second term, which yielded. I'm trying to think. 11 yielded. I think 11 goals for that quarter. Five for Collingwood. Six for Brisbane. With a goal right on the siren again from I think the goalies was on the quarter time siren, and then Jack Crisp got one on the half time siren to really to put him, at that stage. If that guy had gone through that or that should never happened, we could have been in for the first time that we headed in the half time scores level in about over 110, 120 years, I believe it was. I think it was 1909. Was the last grand final, believe it or not, where scores were level at half time in a grand final, but it didn't happen, obviously, through Jack Crisp kicking that goal. Then it was a lot less, and then the scoring sort of died down in the second half, really. As all the teams knew what was at stake, really. But the result was definitely the same. According to the scoreboard, of course, Brisbane obviously kicked, what was it? 6 goals free to 5 goals. 5 goals for in the second term. And then they had, I think it was 1 goal, and then 1 goal 6 for Collingwood, compared to Brisbane with 2 goals 2. So they really did according to the scoreboard, outplay Collingwood, according to the scoreboard in that, but they really never did. But because of Collingwood's, Collingwood's greatness, really, that they did stay ahead, but they didn't, and it probably could have been a lot more for Collingwood if they kicked straight too, as well. But and then the last quarter, it was really a stalemate for most of the last quarter. But when I watched it, I thought to myself, Collingwood were the more composed team, because it felt like to me that Brisbane were just, hacking everything out of desperation, really, while Collingwood were just more composed, to be honest. So if anybody would break this deadlock, it'd be Collingwood, and ironically it did. And it didn't help also Brisbane that's their discipline really let them down in the end. Obviously, Jared Berry gave away 50 metres, which was a bit 50-50, the 50 metres, but I've sort of, gave the benefit of the doubt, really, that, it's the umpires, it's in there, 50 metres. Now, ironically, Steele Sidebottom kicks the goal. That ultimately did seal the win, ultimately, even though Joe Danaher kicked the goal late. And about 30 seconds before this, I said to myself, this could really make it interesting if Brisbane kick a goal. Ironically, they got down there, Danaher marked, goal, and made it back to 4 points. With I think it was about over a minute left. So, but I did say when the ball was bounced, I said they can't get the go-ahead goal too early, because for me as an Essendon fan, we proved it earlier in the year against Port Adelaide at the G, when we went from, I think it was like 4 or 5 goals down early in the last quarter. We got the go-ahead goal with about 90 seconds left. And for me, that was 30 seconds too early. And then that allowed for the freaking Houston goal after the siren to win it. So that's why I said to myself, they can't get the go-ahead goal too early, because with Collingwood, we all know what Collingwood is going to do. They're going to get out of the centre and basically get it in the hands of the goalie or something like that. It's going to kick a goal and put them back in front. And then basically, there was a hole in the ball that was that was called against Crisp, but they paid advantage, which on one side of things, I think it was Lachie Neale that did it, and to be honest, there was it was over 100,000 people. How else would he have heard the holding the ball thing? But on the other hand, surely if someone had kicked it, surely it would basically be called back in a way. But on the other hand of things, maybe the umpires thought it was going to go into the hands of a Brisbane player, so that's why he paid advantage. But that at that point I thought to myself, it's all over, and basically siren went and Collingwood won by 4 points, which in a grand final, which we all wanted to see since, of course, the 2018 grand final. We all wanted to see something like that, and finally we did. Albeit it was a win to freaking Collingwood. So in the end, Collingwood win the 2023 AFL Premiership by 4 points, 12-18-90 to 13-8-86. Let's just say Collingwood could have won by more, as I said earlier, if they had kicked straight. So on to the goals. Bobby Hill, the Norm Smith medalist, by an absolute country mile, with perfect votes from the judges. He led from the front with a career high 4 goals. Perfect time to do a career high, by the way, in the grand final. Crisp with 2. DeGoey, who you could probably understand really deep down why I chose DeGoey to be the Norm Smith, because of his performance basically in the prelim, and I thought, if he's done that in the prelim, he's probably going to do it in the grand final too. He probably didn't have that much bit of a game, but he played his role, and the two goals he had were important goals. One on the quarter time siren, and another to basically almost put a dagger in the heart for Brisbane near the end of the game. Nick Day, and then of course you got Nick Dacos, Myercheck, Pendlebury, and Sidebottom all kicked one, with Sidebottom's bomb from outside 50 eventually sealing the game. To Brisbane, Charlie Cameron, not surprised, and Joe Danaher had three touches, had 3 goals each. 2 of the top 3 best players for me on the ground for Brisbane, I believe, Cameron and Danaher. I believe Danaher was just clunking everything, and then Charlie Cameron was being, Charlie Cameron, pretty much. Zach Bailey, 2 goals, including the absolute ripper in the first quarter. McCarthy also with 2, McCluggage also with 2, and Robertson with 1. The best players on the ground for Collingwood, not surprisingly, Bobby Hill, Norm Smith medalist. Who would have thought that? Obviously, what a story! There's stories all over this Collingwood team. Bobby Hill, obviously GWS, had testicular cancer. Requested a trade back home. Has come to Collingwood. It's become an integral part of this team, and now he's a premiership player and a Norm Smith medalist. So and nobody was happier to be honest than Brad Hill. Brad Hill, obviously, he was. I saw a video of him on Instagram, and he was just absolutely over the moon for his cousins to be the Norm Smith medalist in a grand final. Nick Dacos too. I mean, broke his leg in the latter half of the season. We all thought, is his season done? Eventually, that cost him the Brownlow. You could say in the preliminary final, obviously, you could let him go for that because obviously it's just come back from injury. But this one, this was the Nick Dacos that we saw throughout most of 2023, I should say. And also to be a premiership player in his second year pretty mean feat, and also for the Dacos family for him and Josh to follow in the footsteps of the great Peter Dacos. Being a premiership player is more important, really. Crisp, obviously, his two goals. Obviously, it was outstanding. If I would do the votes, I would probably put him at 2 votes. And I would still vote Bobby Hill with 3 because he was very, very influential. Howe as well. I mean, broke his arm in round 1, and broke his arm in round 1. We all thought, is his not just his season, is his career over? Came back miraculously, and now he's a premiership. And now finally, after so many years, he's now a premiership player. And he started off obviously with those lean years at Melbourne. Now he's gone to Collingwood, and now he's a premiership player. Tom Mitchell obviously was the leading man at Hawthorn for several years, of course, winning a Brownlow, and that said to himself, I want to go to a team that I want to win a flag with. Chose Collingwood, and now he's a premiership player. And then obviously Pendlebury, 31st final, 383 games. There's no stopping Pendles. There's no stopping him. There's no sign of the end for Scott Pendlebury at all, to be honest. So it's pretty amazing, really, that possibly, if my memory serves me correctly, if he plays every single game, he'll become the first Collingwood player to play 400 games and become the latest to be part of the 400 club. I mean, just unbelievable, really, from Pendles as well. Of course, Brisbane's best, obviously, McCluggage. I'm surprised about him being the best. I thought Canaan Coleman was more better. In the same way with De Goey, Coleman didn't have the same game he had in the prelim the previous week, but he was still influential for Brisbane. So McCluggage the best for Brisbane, apparently. Joe Danaher, Coleman, not surprisingly, those 3 best I would agree with. Harris Andrews, which for me, I didn't think he had a great game, to be perfectly honest. And talking about his opponent for most of the day, Billy Frampton, I think he had, for me, the best game of someone who had one touch and no goals throughout my time of watching AFL football. And this is one thing I credit Craig McRae. A couple of things I credit Craig McRae for. Number one is he probably had said to Billy Frampton. He's probably said this. I don't care if you get 5 or 6 goals, 2 or 3 goals, or you get duck eggs for touching the ball. I don't care. So long as you compete against Harris Andrews, and definitely he did. He did. Yes, he had some intercept possessions. Did Harris Andrews, but they probably weren't, for me, influential. He didn't have any much influence on the game, really, to Harris Andrews, and that boils down to Billy Frampton. Yeah, and then another thing I'll credit Craig McRae for is when Murphy went down, he probably could have went and gone, yeah, Frampton, you go to the back line, De Goey, you go full forward, and Lipinski go into where De Goey was. He didn't do that, which he went by his gut instinct, kept and just stuck with it, and basically, and he's been doing that throughout since Collingwood appointed him as coach, and that's massive credit for him. He's been the best coach in the AFL over the last 2 years, and that's why Collingwood are here. That's why they're here, basically because of him. 50% of the players and 50% because of Craig McRae, really, on that front. So yeah. So Harris Andrews, I thought he didn't have much influence on the game, to be perfectly honest for me. And then the others were Zach Bailey and Charlie Cameron. The leading disposal getters on the ground were for Collingwood were Nick Dacos, not surprisingly, with 29. Crisp, Pendlebury and Tom Mitchell with 25 touches each, and Jeremy Howe with 24. For Brisbane, it is Caneen Coleman with 26 touches. Neil McCluggage and Dunkley with 21, with Ryan Lester having 18 touches. Only one, of course, obviously the one injury report in this game, that was Nathan Murphy with concussion. As I said, I'll probably more and more likely some Collingwood supporters. If it was another regular game, Collingwood supporters would have complained and go, "Oh, why is it Lincoln McCarthy reported?" Yada yada yada. Since the grand final, Collingwood won, and probably most of the freaking Collingwood supporters were drunk after the win. They probably didn't care. So yeah. And then speaking of Murphy, of course, he was replaced. Of course, Pat Lipinski as the sub replaced him at quarter time, while Jared Lyons, it was the sub for Brisbane for most of for all the final series, he came on in place of Callum Archie in the last quarter. The game was played, as I said earlier, in front of 100,024 people at the MCG. Again, full capacity. Which was the two buzzwords for this year in the AFL. Full capacity, great to see full crowds again, and I hope it gets bigger for next year. Hopefully the crowd just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Hopefully, yeah, and of course the buzzword, obviously, Collingwood, hurts me to say, win their 16th premiership, which equals Carlton and Essendon. God help us all. Please, God help us all. Please just God help us all, please. That's but yeah, that kills me to say But yeah, moving on from that, on to the NRL Grand Final. As I said, the first time we're going to be talking about the NRL on the BD Footy Wrap Up, and hopefully, and as a sneak peek, hopefully I'll do more about NRL and general rugby league for this series next season. But yeah, the NRL Grand Final, obviously, the two best teams, obviously Penrith, the best team in the last 2 seasons, and of course the Broncos, who done this incredible rise from last in 2020, second last in 2021, just missing out on finals in 2022, and then obviously making a grand final this year. The start of the game, it took 17 minutes for the first try to be scored. Obviously, that was due to Mitch Kenny. Due to Mitch Kenny in the 17th minute. And then obviously. And then soon after, there was a penalty that was awarded, and Nathan Cleary took that. Obviously, and then afterwards, it was basically all the Broncos, really. Fiedler made it really interesting. With a try right on the stroke of half time, to make it the scores 8-6 at half time. And then afterwards, well, let's call this the Ezra Mam show, because he absolutely tore Penrith a new one in basically in 10 minutes. Scored the first try in the 44th minute, which I didn't see, by the way, because I didn't know that didn't know the second half had started, really. But then and then scored again 4 minutes later. Not 4 minutes later, 8 minutes later in the 52nd minute, and then straight afterwards, when we all held our breath he scored another one off the back of one of Reece Walsh's trademark runs, pretty much, and pretty much sent Ezra Mam over. And his 3 tries, by the way, as a fun fact, broke the record for the most tries ever scored by 5 in a season by 5/8, which was on 3 occasions. I think it was 18 tries. I think on 3 occasions. I can't remember all 3 of them. It was spoken about in the broadcast on which I watched on Channel 9. So yeah, and when Ezra Mann scored that 3rd try, we all thought, the Panthers are almost done. It was 24-8 and 16 points down, and it was over. It was pretty much all but over. Pretty much. It was pretty much basically all but over. Really. But yeah, and it was just, and then obviously, the man himself, Nathan Cleary, sent Moses Leota over to give him a slight chance. Give him a slight chance. Of course, Cleary made the conversion at 4, which made it 10 points. And then a bit of a chance turned into a massive chance about 5 minutes later, when Stephen Crichton, in his final game for the Panthers before moving to Canterbury, moving to the Bulldogs next season, he scored to make it 24-18, which of course Cleary converted that, which made it 4 points at 20-24. And then afterwards, I was just jumping around. I was like, oh, how's this gonna end? And then afterwards, for about 7 or 8 minutes, nothing really happened. I was selling about all these scenarios. Maybe the Broncos might be in contention to maybe score maybe a field goal, but probably, you never know, with the Panthers, they'll probably score a late try maybe, which would mean, and obviously with Nathan Cleary being a dead-eye dick, obviously he would score that conversion, which ultimately would win them the game. Which that didn't happen. And obviously Nathan Cleary, who sealed it all with obviously, it started with him, making the pass over to Leota for the try to bring him back to 10. Then a minute later with the 40-20 kick, which was outstanding at the right time, which pretty much led to the Stephen Crichton try, mind you, which he converted that too. And just to take the P155 out of the Broncos fans, he literally breaks their hearts with a try in the 76th minute. When he scored that try, I immediately said the words, "Cometh the hour, cometh the man, cometh the legend." That's what I said. That's what I clearly said. And of course he converted it, make it 26-24. But the Broncos, they did have one more chance. Reece Walsh obviously went through his trademark runs. Unfortunately, this time it didn't come off, and I knew straight away when he did the error, it's over. It's all over. And the final whistle went, the Panthers fans and players went crazy, and not surprisingly, Brisbane Broncos fans and players were completely heartbroken. So they should. So two times in 2 days, Brisbane teams were absolutely heartbroken over a lost in a close game against teams that were coloured in black. The Lions against Collingwood, and then now the Broncos against the Panthers. Yeah, and not surprisingly, by the way, Cleary was the Clive Churchill medalist. Not surprisingly, I was like, just give the man the medal, just give it to him, why don't you? And obviously, he did win it. He did win it in 2021 when they won again in a tight one, and also in another tight one against the Rabbitohs, and yeah. And the one thing that I remember was the one thing I can remember, and this opened my eyes a bit. Was Isaiah Yo's speech on the podium before he would lift the Premiership trophy. His words at the end were, "We're not done yet." And I was just like, they're not done yet. They've already won 3 in a row. And he's saying they're not done yet. That is frightening with a capital F. They've won 3. They've made 4 straight grand finals. They've won 3 straight premierships now. Where could this team be going in terms of successful rugby league sides is beyond me. Like it's the 5th different team. Penrith are the 5th different team in the history of rugby league to win the three-peat. The 6th time it's in the 6th time that the three-peat has happened in the history of rugby league, and the first time in the NRL era a team has won the three-peat. Obviously, the Roosters in 2018 and 19 came close, but not close enough. I don't know if there was others. I don't think. Well, probably the Storm back when their premiership was stripped. Obviously, if they were competitive in our way, maybe they could have won the three-peat there, but not quite close enough there. The Roosters, obviously, back in the early 2000s, they would have been in that situation, but probably weren't close enough. But the Panthers sort of did, and I just wonder how many of these they're going to win in a row. We all know that ridiculous St. George Dragons team from the late 50s and early 60s that won 11 in a row. Like, winning back-to-back is hard enough. To win it 11 in a row is just insane. And we could possibly be seeing that with the Panthers. We're seeing that at Penrith, based off of what Isaiah Yeo just said. We're not done yet. So yeah. So it was pretty interesting, really, and yeah. So it was just pretty interesting, really. But yeah. So that is pretty much just about everything, really, to speak about on the final episode of the VD Footy Wrap Up for 2023. It's been, as I said at the start, at the top. It's been at the top of the video. It's been a massive ride. Obviously, missed weeks and months of this, but we came together well at the most important time, finals time. So yeah, and hopefully I want to make this more of a regular thing, and also I want to, speak more NRL, because obviously, fun fact about me, I've been a fan of the NRL more than I've been a fan of the AFL. Fun fact. So yeah, I started being a fan of rugby league around 2007, when I was about 6 or 7 years of age. About a few years later, I became a fan of the AFL. So yeah, there you go. So like this video, share this to anybody who is a Collingwood fan who is a Collingwood fan, or if you're both a Brisbane Lions or Broncos fan, being at both, share this to any of them. Comment down below. Comment down below which game do you think if you watch both grand finals like myself, which one was the best? What was the more thrilling game? Was it the AFL grand final? Was it the NRL grand final? All classics in their own way, but yeah. So congrats to. So at the end of the day, congrats to Collingwood on winning the 2023 frickin' AFL Premiership, and the Penrith Panthers on winning their third consecutive NRL Telstra Premiership. And lastly, to end this series for 2023, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labelled subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, wherever you may be. May the sun or the moon shine on you for the rest of this year. Even though the footy season's over, we still got an exciting summer to contend with.